The pyramids, they've been telling us they were built in Egypt and Mexico, which is wrong because they were built all over the planet. That almost everything they teach us about the ancient history is wrong. The origin of man, civilizations, and pyramids.
In the heart of Bosnia rise hills that look far too precise to be natural.
Pyramids in the former Yugoslavia, in central Bosnia and Herzegovina, are the largest man-made ancient pyramids on Earth.
Rising like pyramids, these hills have been described as older than Egypt, taller than Giza, and the lost work of a civilization erased from time.
These stone blocks were man-made. The pyramid was built from scratch. Who did it? The history does not have good answers.
Believers claim they are the world's first true pyramids. One thing is certain, whatever lies beneath Bosnia,
I think we are at the beginning of rediscovering long-lost knowledge.
has the power to shatter history as we know it. The Bosnian hill that started the pyramid craze. Northwest of Sarajevo, about 15 miles away, lies the small town of Visoko. At first, the valley feels quiet and ordinary, but when your eyes wander upward, you notice the ridge that dominates the skyline. Locals call it Visočica, or Hill Town. Climb to the top, and you'll find yourself standing more than 2,500 feet above sea level, with a view that feels like a natural lookout tower. The hill rises nearly 700 feet above its base, and when the light strikes it just right, its slopes seem sharp and triangular, almost like the sides of a giant monument. That's where curiosity begins to creep in. The shapes look so neat and geometric that they could pass for something man-made. Sitting atop the ridge are the ruins of the old town of Visoki, a medieval fortress built for defense. Imagine a stone stronghold stretched across the narrow ridge. The central part of the fortress measured just about 200 feet by 80 feet, but its walls were nearly 7 feet thick. 2 towers guarded the southwestern approach, controlling the roads and river crossings below. This fortress first appeared in records on September 1st, 1355, when Tvrtko I, still a young ruler at the time, signed a charter there. The fortress remained important through the 1400s before fading into ruin. Today, it's recognized as a protected national monument. That's the solid ground of this place: geology and medieval history. But in 2005, everything changed when a new claim caught the world's imagination. Semir Sam Osmanagic, a Bosnian-born businessman living in Houston, climbed Visočica during a book tour. Though trained in metalworking, not archaeology, he was already known for writing books about alternative history. Looking at the hill, he became convinced it was not a natural slope, but an ancient pyramid. Not just any pyramid, but one larger and older than those in Egypt. He said its sides lined up with the cardinal directions, and he gave it a name: the Pyramid of the Sun. Soon, he extended the idea to nearby hills, christening them the Pyramid of the Moon, the Pyramid of the Dragon, the Pyramid of Love, and the Temple of Mother Earth. He created the Archaeological Park, Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Foundation, rallied volunteers, raised funds, and began excavations. His message was bold. The world's greatest pyramid complex was hiding in plain sight, right in Bosnia. The media couldn't resist. In the spring of 2006, the story leapt from local headlines to the global stage. Major outlets, BBC, Associated Press, Agence France Presse, and Nightline, brought cameras to the valley. Tourists and adventurers followed. Even high-profile guests arrived, including Malaysia's former Prime Minister, Mahathir Mohamad, that July. Back in Sarajevo, Osmanagic's foundation attracted donations, some even from state-owned companies. For Bosnia, still scarred by the war of the 1990s, when more than 100,000 people were killed and millions were displaced, the idea of ancient pyramids felt like a balm. It offered a sense of pride, a reminder of greatness, and a story that pushed against years of loss and tragedy. But scientists quickly pushed back. To geologists, the bedrock was already well known, and the digging worried them. In April and May of 2006, a team from the University of Tuzla, led by paleogeologist Seyfuddin Vrabak, studied the hill directly. They drilled 6 cores, reaching depths of 10 to 56 feet. What they found was exactly what the geology predicted: stacked sediments of sandstone, conglomerate, and clay, all dating back to the Miocene. These layers matched the surrounding mountains perfectly. To the team, it was clear: the hill was a natural landform, not a hidden pyramid. Archaeologists had their own alarm bells. The summit's ruins were genuine and fragile. The Visoki fortress, along with traces of medieval and Roman history, was well documented. Uncontrolled digging, they warned, could erase irreplaceable layers of heritage. In June 2006, a public letter circulated through Archaeology magazine, urging UNESCO and Bosnian authorities to act. It warned that chasing after pyramid fantasies while damaging real history would be a cultural disaster, especially for a country that had already lost so much in war. By December 11, 2006, criticism grew sharper. The European Association of Archaeologists issued a formal statement to Bosnia's government, calling the Pyramid Project a cruel hoax on an unsuspecting public. They said it had no place in real science and was draining resources from true archaeology. The signatories were some of the biggest names in the field: Herman Parzinger of the German Archaeological Institute, Willem Willems from the Netherlands, Jean-Paul Demoule from France, Romuald Schild of Poland, Vasil Nikolov of Bulgaria, Anthony Harding, then president of the EAA, and Mike Hayworth from the Council for British Archaeology. These weren't faceless critics. They were some of the top archaeologists in Europe, speaking with one voice. Meanwhile, science communicators tried to explain to the public why the hill looked so convincing. The shapes are called flat irons. They form when a tough layer of rock tilts upward and resists erosion, while softer material around it crumbles away. Over millions of years, rain, rivers, and gravity carve the surface into a triangle that narrows to a peak. It looks deliberate, but it's nature working with patience, not chisels and tools. None of this is about gullibility. It's simply the way our brains respond to symmetry and sharp lines in nature. The shapes feel engineered, even when they're not. And through all of this, the medieval fortress remained the real crown of the hill. Charters tie it directly to Bosnia's rulers. Its towers and walls guarded the landscape for centuries. Hike up today, and you'll still see stones laid by medieval hands. That's the actual history in plain sight, and careless digging for dramatic discoveries threatens to erase it. Supporters of the pyramid idea, though, clung to one detail: the alignment. Osmanagic often repeated that the sides of the hill matched the cardinal directions. To the untrained eye, this sounded like proof. But geologists noted that natural slopes can and do align with north, south, east, and west purely by chance. In areas where wide packages of tilted rock share the same orientation, entire hillsides can look aligned. A compass match may impress, but it's not evidence of construction. Still, the pyramid story struck a deep chord in Bosnia. Even scholars skeptical of the pyramid idea admitted that the story's cultural pull was powerful. It wasn't just about rocks and slopes. It was about hope. That's the tension that keeps the mystery alive. If it's natural, why does it look so deliberate? Why do visitors leave feeling they've walked on a monument instead of a mountain? To dig into those questions, you can't just stay at the summit. You have to walk the ridge lines, look across the valley, and study the neighboring hills with their own grand names: the sun, the moon, and the dragon. Why Bosnia's hills look so perfectly engineered. Supporters of the Bosnian pyramid story always start with the same headline claim: the valley holds not just one unusual hill, but 5. At the center is Visočica, renamed the Pyramid of the Sun. Surrounding it, they say, are 4 companions: the Pyramid of the Moon, the Pyramid of the Dragon, the Pyramid of Love, and the Temple of Mother Earth. To them, these aren't just ridges with catchy names. They're carefully placed monuments forming a single grand complex. That idea, that Bosnia hides an intentional 5-part design, was the spark that caught fire in 2005 and 2006. It still shapes how guides and brochures talk about Visoko today, complete with maps and diagrams showing the Bosna River flowing right through the supposed layout like a spine through the body. The first thing that grabs attention is size. Supporters say the Pyramid of the Sun rises about 720 feet from its base to its summit. Put that beside the Great Pyramid of Giza, which originally stood 481 feet tall, and Bosnia's hill looks taller. That number became the headline figure in news coverage and the stat repeated on tourist visits. It's why drone shots of Visočica's sweeping slopes went viral. Because on paper, the Bosnian pyramid beats Giza. But the comparison hides an important distinction. A pyramid's height measures how high people stacked stones. A hill's relief measures how far the land rises above the ground around it, no matter how it formed. Relief is a mapmaker's word. It's just the difference between low and high points, the same thing contour lines trace on topographic maps. So yes, Visočica climbs more than 700 feet above the valley. But that doesn't mean it was built stone by stone. One is human construction, the other is natural elevation. Mixing the two is easy, but misleading. From size, the story shifts to orientation. Besides the cardinal alignment of Visočica, Osmanagić and his team draw connections to star patterns, Orion's belt, the Pleiades, mirroring the way people talk about Egypt's pyramids, or Teotihuacan in Mexico. Suddenly, Bosnia doesn't just have pyramids, it has cosmic ones. But geologists and surveyors warn that this can be an illusion. Hillsides are uneven, covered with forest, and shaped by erosion. The slope you choose to measure makes all the difference. Pick one long ridgeline, and it might look perfectly aligned. Pick another, and it doesn't. Without strict survey methods, the perfect orientation can end up being more about choice than about natural precision. The claims don't stop with alignment on a single hill. Supporters often say the sun, moon, and dragon mark the corners of a perfect equilateral triangle. Each side, they argue, measures about 2,170 meters, roughly 7,120 feet. Guides present this as undeniable proof of design. On a clear day, standing in the valley and turning your head from ridge to ridge, it can feel like the peaks do form a triangle. But landscapes produce triangles naturally. In any basin ringed by ridges, you can connect 3 points and find symmetry. To prove intentional design, you'd need detailed surveys, shared data, and independent checks. Without that, the triangle is a neat coincidence that looks convincing on a tourist map. Then there's the surface of the hills themselves. Walk the slopes of the sun or moon, and you'll find layers of rock that look like giant slabs stacked together. To believers, these aren't natural beds of sandstone or conglomerate. They argue the slabs are blocks of an ancient concrete, stronger than anything we use today. They often call it Geopolymer concrete, a man-made material created by binding minerals in a cement-like mix. Supporters frequently quote a number, 94 megapascals of compressive strength, equal to about 13,600 pounds per square inch. That's stronger than most modern concrete, and the stat has been repeated in press interviews as proof of lost technology. To them, Bosnia's builders weren't just ancient, they were advanced. The story gets another twist with dating. Some guides show visitors thin layers of soil or leaves sandwiched above a flat stone and say radiocarbon dating put them at 30,000 years old. From there, they leap to a conclusion. If the organic matter is that old, then the block beneath must be older still. That would place construction far beyond any known European civilization. But this is not how dating works. A radiocarbon date gives the age of the tested material, not the structure it touches. Leaves can blow in and get trapped in cracks long after rock formed. Soil can be much younger or much older than the bed beneath it. A date on a leaf tells you when that leaf lived, not when a supposed pyramid was built. Even the project's own blogs sometimes admit the dating is tied to organic fragments, not to quarried stone. Supporters also point to visual effects that feel persuasive in the moment. One favorite is the claim that during certain sunsets, the pyramid of the sun casts a perfect shadow across the pyramid of the moon. Standing there, it looks theatrical, almost scripted. They talk about cosmic north and link these effects to ancient calendars. But dramatic shadows are natural, the product of seasonal sun angles and tall ridges. Any mountain can throw a neat shadow at the right time of year, and compass readings can be misleading if you don't correct for magnetic north or if you stand near metal fences or cars. Once again, the effect depends on where you look and how you measure. Technology has added new fuel to the argument. Supporters share drone surveys and elevation models, pointing out edges and angles that look impossibly sharp. To a casual observer, the diagrams look like proof. But geologists like Robert Schock, who visited the site, argue these are textbook examples of sandstone and conglomerate bedding. In high-contrast photos, the edges look like steps. In person, they're fractured rock layers, no different from other tilted hills around the world. And yet, the story has lasted nearly 20 years because the surface is so persuasive. Hills do look like pyramids from the right angle. Alignments do feel uncanny when you stand in the valley. Slabs of rock really do look like blocks. Add in claims about shadows and stars, and the imagination runs wild. For many visitors, the feeling outweighs the geology lesson. You stand surrounded by ridges, hear a guide explain triangles and cosmic alignments, and you feel part of something ancient, whether or not the science holds up. But Bosnia isn't the only place where slopes and stones blur the line between nature and design. Thousands of miles away, another hillside rises in steps so sharp and orderly that visitors can't decide if they're walking on a mountain or on a monument. The Indonesian hill that looks like a pyramid. High in the hills of West Java stands Gunung Padang, a ridge that almost plays tricks on your eyes. From a distance, it doesn't look like a normal hill at all. It looks like a giant staircase carved into the side of a mountain. And the closer you walk toward it, the stronger the illusion gets. There isn't one big flat summit waiting at the top. Instead, you find terrace after terrace, 5 in all, each one stacked smaller than the one below, rising like steps toward the sky. Getting up there is no gentle stroll. A stone staircase of about 370 steps climbs the slope, rising more than 300 feet from the valley floor to the top court. The stairs are steep, pitched at nearly 45 degrees in places, so by the time you reach the top, Your legs know you've earned it. The whole place sits nearly 2,900 feet above sea level, balanced on the shoulder of an extinct volcano about 30 miles southwest of the town of Cianjur. Right away, you feel the tension that defines Gunung Padang. The terraces look like they were shaped and planned, but they also sit directly on volcanic rock. Was it built? Or is it a natural ridge, later dressed up by human hands? That single question has fueled a global debate. If you're imagining giant cut blocks like the pyramids of Egypt, that's not what you see here. The walls and steps of Gunung Padang are edged with long volcanic columns made of andesite. These columns formed when lava cooled and cracked into neat hexagonal shapes. Think of how mud dries in the sun and splits into polygons, only here it happened in molten rock. The result is a pile of natural geometric posts that look like timbers waiting to be stacked. On the terraces, they are laid side by side, sometimes flat like planks, sometimes upright like fence posts. They formed steps, retaining walls and neat edges. The layout is simple but precise. One rectangular top terrace, 4 trapezoids below, all aligned along a northwest-southeast axis, all linked by that central staircase. The geometry feels unmistakably human, but the building material is pure volcanic. That's the paradox that makes this place unforgettable. Gunung Padang is not a brand new find. A Dutch official wrote about it back in 1890. Archaeologist N.J. Krom described it again in 1914. After that, it slipped into obscurity until 1979, when local farmers and hikers revived interest. Indonesian archaeological offices in Bandung and Jakarta surveyed it again, and this time it stuck. By 1998, Gunung Padang was officially listed as a regional cultural heritage. In 2014, it was upgraded to National Cultural Heritage status. But for the Sundanese people who live around it, the hill was sacred long before those papers. Local legend says King Siliwangi tried to build a palace here in a single night. Stand on the upper terrace as the sun drops behind the hills, and you understand why that story lives on. Walk the terraces one by one, and the design reveals itself. The lowest terrace feels like a plaza, broad and open. The second and third rise narrower. The fourth feels like the natural shoulder of the hill. And the fifth is the crown. A small courtyard scattered with upright posts and fallen columns, some bleached pale by the sun, others dark and mossy. The climb covers only about 360 feet horizontally, but with the steep grade, it feels longer. The design isn't unique either. West Java has long had a tradition of stepped shrines called Punden Berundak, literally terraced shrines, where platforms climb a hill for rituals. Most Indonesian archaeologists see Gunung Padang as the grandest version of that form. So far, everything makes sense. But the fire starts when people ask, how old is this place, and how deep does it go? Around 2011, a geophysicist named Danny Hillman Natawijaja stirred the pot. He used ground-penetrating radar, resistivity, and cores to probe beneath the terraces. His interpretation was bold. Beneath the visible steps lies a much larger structure, possibly with chambers built in stages tens of thousands of years ago. Some of his statements pointed to ages as early as 20,000 to 27,000 years. For a country already proud of Borobudur and Prambanan, the thought of a monument older than Egypt or Mesopotamia, hiding in the hills of Java, was explosive. In November 2023, Natawijaja and his co-authors published their claims in the journal Archaeological Prospection. They argued Gunung Padang was a man-made pyramid, built in phases over tens of thousands of years. Headlines around the world screamed, oldest pyramid and rewriting history. But scientists pushed back. Archaeologists and geologists noted that the radiocarbon dates came from soil, not from clear construction layers. They argued the radar images were being read too confidently, and they pointed out that natural volcanic columns were being mistaken for carved blocks. By March 2024, the journal retracted the paper. Their note said plainly, "The evidence did not support the conclusions." The authors disagreed, but the retraction stuck. That doesn't erase what everyone accepts. The terraces you can climb were shaped by people. The fight is about what lies below, and how far back the story really goes. Mainstream Indonesian archaeologists date the terraces to the last 2,000 years. Lutfi Yondri, who has worked there since the early 2000s, places construction between the 2nd and 5th centuries CE. Another senior scholar, Harry Truman Simanjuntak, argues for the 6th to 8th centuries CE. Pottery fragments found at the site point to activity between 45 BCE and 22 CE. That anchors the ridge firmly in the last 2 millennia. Earlier visits may have happened, but the terraces themselves belong to that younger window. Politics also played a role. In the early 2000s, President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono took an interest, and his advisor Andy Arif formed a task force to push the pyramid angle. National headlines promised stunning discoveries, but more than 30 archaeologists and geologists signed a petition calling for caution. They warned that hype was outpacing evidence. That tug-of-war between big claims and careful science has flared up again every time new research comes out. Still, the visible site itself is more than enough. The staircase climbs about 110 meters, around 360 feet, up the ridge. The terraces line up neatly on a northwest to southeast axis. The walls are built from long andesite posts, fitted without mortar, some flat, some upright. Everything about it is impressive. You can describe it as pyramid-like without pretending the whole mountain is artificial. By 2025, the conversation returned to basics. Indonesia's news agency reported plans to conserve and restore the site, led by the National Research and Innovation Agency and the Ministry of Culture. That means stabilizing steps, reinforcing terraces, and managing tourists. It's the usual work of caring for a heavily visited heritage site. So why does this story stick so strongly? Gunung Padang sits at the intersection of 3 things people can't resist: breathtaking visuals, national pride, and the promise of rewriting history. And if one day excavations do reveal real chambers or deep construction layers with firm dates, that proof will come slowly, from trenches and labs, not from flashy headlines. Until then, Gunung Padang is exactly what you see: a terraced volcanic ridge, sacred to its people, a source of pride, and a reminder that history lives between evidence and imagination. Visoko gave us the spark, and Gunung Padang kept the fire burning. Yet thousands of miles away, in the Peruvian Amazon, a single photograph from space lit up imaginations with the promise of another lost pyramid city. Peru's mysterious pyramids, seen from space. Deep in the thick green where the Andes fade into the Amazon, a strange set of shapes once set imaginations on fire. In 1976, a NASA Landsat photograph captured what looked like a string of perfect triangles in the rainforest of southeastern Peru, just east of the Pantiacola Range. From space, they resembled a neat parade of pyramids, evenly spaced and rising from the jungle. The spot was logged as Paratuari, in the Manu region of Madre de Dios, not far from the winding bends of the Madre de Dios River. For anyone scanning those fresh satellite images of the 1970s, It was irresistible. A row of pyramids sitting in the middle of nowhere. What else could they be? That single photograph kicked off 2 decades of speculation. By 1977, the South American Explorers Club was already buzzing about it. The very first issue of their magazine carried a piece titled "The Dots of Pantiacola," written by the club's founder, Don Montague. That article, and a few follow-ups in the late 1970s, leaned toward a natural explanation. But the photo itself was like bait. The triangles looked too sharp, the spacing too regular. For adventurers already dreaming of lost cities east of Cusco, the dots seemed like a trail leading into legend. And then the mystery just sat there. Paratuari appeared on maps, while stories of the lost city of Paititi, the fabled city of gold, circulated alongside it. The problem was the terrain. This part of Peru is among the toughest landscapes in South America. Manu National Park, declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the 1980s, is pure wilderness. There are no roads, only rivers, narrow boats, and long marches with machetes. Reaching the pyramids meant days of travel by canoe and brutal slogs on foot. That remoteness kept the triangles locked in mystery for nearly 20 years. Finally, in August of 1996, an American explorer named Gregory Dyer-Menjian decided to end the guessing game. A seasoned researcher of Inca history, he gathered a team of Peruvian partners, Paulino Mamani, Dante Núñez del Prado, Fernando Neuenschwander, Ignacio Mamani, and a Machigenga guide called Roberto. He brought his wife, Grenzi, and their baby daughter, Reina, along as well. The group pushed down the Alto Madre de Dios River by motorized canoe, then cut inland toward the coordinates that had haunted explorers for decades. What they found was nothing like the space photo dream. The pyramids were not pyramids at all. They were wedges of sandstone cliffs, their faces cloaked in forest, their bases hidden under rubble. Up close, the neat symmetry of the photograph fell apart. Geologists have a name for these shapes: truncated ridge spurs, the stubs left behind when valleys slice into the side of a ridge. When several repeat in a row, they form chevron patterns that look strikingly regular from above. On the ground, though, they were raw rock, not temples, not walls, not monuments of any kind. You might think that discovery would end the tale, but the photo was too good to die. Depending on the viewing angle, some people swore they saw 8 pyramids, others counted 10, some even 12. Travel writers threw around heights of 150 meters, but in truth, no professional survey had ever nailed the numbers. The simple fact was this: they were triangular noses along a ridge, repeating because erosion repeats itself. Paratuari did not give the world gold or ruins. Instead, it gave us mystery, adventure, and a reminder that sometimes the most compelling pyramids are the ones nature makes on her own. Thanks for watching. Now check out the videos popping up on screen for more unbelievable stories.